If you want to spend only $1 on advertising for every $5 in revenue you make, that's great, but get ready for flat growth.
This sparked an idea for an e-commerce brand. Do you want to hear it?
The concept here is simple, and it's true if you want to sell online. It's true if you want to sell something to a buyer at a retail location, and it's just true in life. And the concept is welcome back to another episode of Whale Informed, the show where my co-host Ethan tells us what we're talking about at the beginning of the show. Ethan, what are we talking about?
All right, let's do it. I'm super excited for this episode. So today we're going to talk about Simple Modern's retail strategy, Wendy's dynamic pricing, Burger King's revolutionary ad, and then we're going to conclude it with Gymshark's P&L. We're going to dig deep into that, maybe throw in some triple whale benchmarking data. But I'm going to shut up now. We're going to hop into the Johnologue. Take it away, John.
Okay, so to start, we're going to talk about a company called Simple Modern. Simple Modern is a company that makes the stuff you carry things in. So they make bags, they make tumblers, they make lunch boxes, water bottles, backpacks. If you put stuff in it, they make it. Their founder and CEO just wrote a breakdown about how they sell their products in retailers like Target and Costco. And I want to read you the intro really quick. He said, "This year we will sell several $100 million worth of hydration products with retail partners like Target, Walmart, and Costco. When I founded Simple Modern 8 years ago, I had zero experience in physical retail. Here's what I've learned along the way." And I want to stop here because I think some people will instantly write this off for one of three reasons. Either one, they don't believe him. Two, they don't believe the information will be helpful to them. Or three, and most importantly and most commonly, we as humans don't believe in ourselves enough to believe that we can do the same thing. And we don't want to admit that to ourselves. So we use what I like to call the I could too statement. So the I could too statement sounds like this. Well, of course, Mike's brand is doing several hundred million per year in sales. They're all over Target, Walmart, and Costco. I could do that too if I could get my products in those stores. So this does a couple things for us. It minimizes the accomplishment, and it makes us feel better by pulling him down. We do this not only in business, but in our personal lives too. Think about that person you went to high school with who's always posting, about their awesome travel with their hot girlfriend on Instagram. And, what do you say? Oh yeah, well, if my parents were that rich, I could do that too, right? You got to pull them down to your level. And this somehow makes us feel better as humans, but it's all it does. It only makes us feel better. The other thing it does is it closes our mind off to possibilities, and it keeps us from accomplishing those things as well. So I want to get past that first and just say, don't do that. Don't knock the thing until, after you've heard it. Second thing I want to say about this is that I could too statement isn't necessarily true. Getting your products into retail would not guarantee success. The retail game is way different than any other game that you've played, even if you sell physical products. It's kind of like an NFL player saying that they could play in the NBA if they were 6'10". But being 6'10" wouldn't magically give them the skills for a completely different game. It wouldn't make it so that they can shoot and pass and dribble and they know the game of basketball all of a sudden. It would just make them a tall NFL player. So if you're successful in direct-to-consumer sales, so you're already selling your products on your website successfully, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do retail, but I am saying that you can't do it halfway. You have to dedicate a team to it, and you have to run it as almost its own business. If you want to go into retail because you aren't successful direct-to-consumer, you aren't successfully able to sell your products on your website, well, maybe it would work. Maybe you would be able to sell your products in retail, but why aren't you successful direct to consumer? There's two parts of product market fit, and going into the retail instead of selling on your website, that fixes the market side. You're saying my product is great, it just needs a different market. But how do you actually know your product is great if you're not selling it already? So I want to start by saying that about retail and just telling people, like, don't minimize this, right? Don't think, well, yeah, they're huge, that would never work for me. At one point they weren't huge. Ethan, I want to pause here for a second and get your thoughts.
It's like it's easy to see where somebody is at right now and not to think about how they got there. It reminds me of the overnight success stories that people see, and they're like, oh yeah, like if I did that, like I would have done the same thing. But then a lot of people that have those overnight successes tell you this was not an overnight success. There's no such thing as an overnight success, and there's a lot of work that goes into something like this. And I think you're starting to hit on this, but in his thread, Simple Modern, they go into the story of how they got into retail and how
Yeah.
it's so much more than you think.
Yeah. So this really has three parts. Part one is getting the meeting with the person that matters, that can get you into Target, that can get you into Costco. Part two is what to say in the meeting, what to say when you get the meeting. And part three is kind of an example. It's the exact story of how Simple Modern did it. So, part one, I'm going to read a paraphrase of what Mike wrote. He said, if you want to sell to a mass retail partner, the most important person is the buyer for your category. Buyers are assigned to a few categories in the store and are responsible for choosing what products will be offered on the shelf. They are the gatekeepers. It is nearly impossible to connect with a buyer without a strategy because they have tremendous buying budgets. They're inundated with emails and calls from people who want to sell to them. A buyer once told me she would receive several hundred cold emails daily. The most consistent way to connect with a buyer is to work with a broker. Brokers assist brands in the process of selling to retailers. Brokers usually have a buying background and they have excellent relationship networks. With a compelling story, a broker can get you a meeting. And I want to pause here and talk about a principle. The principle is businesses that provide a service. Now, this is anything from plumbers all the way up to retail brokers, PR agencies. Any business that provides a service is split into one of two categories. A category I call true value and another category I call convenience. So in the convenience category, they either possess a skill that you don't have. So this would be like plumbers, mechanics. The problem is that these skills sometimes become more accessible. So a lot of people can fix a lot of their own stuff now by just watching their YouTube videos. We're seeing this in the e-commerce space with media buying agencies. For a long time, they just had the skill that a lot of e-commerce store owners and brand owners didn't have. But now that skill is becoming easier to execute and more accessible. The second kind of convenience service business is that they provide a must be done service that nobody wants to do. So a great example of this is I pay somebody come over every week and pick up the dog poop in our yard. It doesn't cost me very much. I don't want to do it. It has to be done. Uh, Problem with that is it's a limited TAM and you can't charge very much, right? So that's the smallest amount you can charge for a service. The next smallest amount is when there's a skill gap, right? So those are convenience services. And then there's another kind of service business that is a true value service business. And this is why I bring this up in this retail conversation. A true value service business is one of two things. Either they have authorization that you don't have. So these are lawyers, right? They are authorized to do things that you aren't able to do. Doctors, they're authorized to do things that you can't do for yourself. Or they have a network that you cannot access. So PR agencies, brokers, things like that. So they have some kind of true value, sort of hard asset, either a certification or a network. It's not just a skill, not like they've just learned to do something or they're just willing to do something that you don't want to learn or you're not willing to do. So that's this is important for everybody really in life. This is important if you're hiring for a service, right? I've decided that I am willing to hire somebody to scoop the poop in my backyard. I've decided I'm willing to pay somebody to change my oil. These are both things that I'm capable of doing. I just don't want to. I've also decided I'm willing to pay somebody to fix my car when it breaks down. It's a skill I don't have and I don't really want to learn. I'd rather pay somebody to do it. It's also important if you are a service business. The better kind of service business to be is a true value service business because you have a real moat and you can charge more money. Again, another pause. Thoughts on this, Ethan?
Working at Triple Well, we are a software as a service. And so being on the marketing team, this is something that we've talked a lot about from day one. It is for our prospective customers, what are their jobs to be done and what are they hiring Triple Whale to do? So we think of those jobs to be done and they're hiring Triple Whale to do those jobs. If we don't do those jobs for them well, they won't remain customers. They'll move on. They'll find something else that does the job better or they'll do it themselves. And so it's an incredible point and something that I've thought a lot about from working at Triple Well and being on the other side of it when buying softwares or products or physical services. And if the value that they provide isn't more than what it costs, then that service won't make sense anymore for the buyer.
Yeah. So kind of back to our story of how Simple Modern sells so much and got into retail and sells so much product in retail. So part one was securing the meeting. Part two is what do we actually say when we're in the meeting? So I'm going to read sort of a paraphrase of his next part of this post. He said, "You get a life-changing opportunity if you secure a meeting with a buyer. Mass retail is a zero-sum sales game. For you to get shelf space, someone else has to lose it. It is imperative to clearly demonstrate how your products will be better than the items currently offered. Buyers have two goals when selecting products. One, pick items that will drive traffic to the stores. Two, pick items that maximize the sales and profits generated by the space they manage. Build your pitch around how you can help them accomplish one of these two things or both." So here are a few angles on driving traffic. Brand. So how many we have many brand loyal customers. Functionality, we offer features not currently available to customers. Differentiation, our product uniquely solves the customer's problem. Value, we offer customers a better deal. Build your argument around data that supports your claims. So helpful data points include a brand's social media following, Google and Amazon search data, sales growth, successful launches in physical retail, product reviews, IPs or patents, customer surveys, or product demonstrations. So I want to take this back. That was the end of what he wrote, or the end of what I'll paraphrase. I want to take this back and restate part of the original "I could" to statement. So I could sell several hundred million. I could do several hundred million in sales too if Target and Costco would carry my product. The only reason the stores carry the product in the first place is because there's another "I could" to statement to even get the product into the store. And that "I could" to statement basically boils down to one of three things. One, you don't really need the retailer because you're already successful. So, for example, Harry's Razors native deodorant, right? They're already successfully selling. They have huge social media accounts. They have people who are looking for them. Uh, Two, you have an actual net new invention. So you're a category of one within a category. You have to fit into their stores. They have to know where to put you. They have to know what category you're in. But within that category, you're a category of one. I can't think of a lot of great examples here because this is like truly inventing a new product. But I thought of two. The first one is a little bit old, but if you remember the product Head On, Head On was a medicine for headaches, but instead of taking a pill, you would put it directly on your head. And the ads were like famously like 15 seconds of somebody just saying, "Head On, apply directly to the head. Head On, apply directly to the head," over and over. Super annoying. But like, what is it? 20 years later now, I still remember it. Another example of like a net new product or a category of one within a category. Again, the throwback here is like Axe body spray. So before Axe body spray sold Axe body spray, before Axe body spray was making middle school John the talk of all the ladies, there was no such thing as body spray. You just put deodorant in your armpits and you called it good. And now everybody has body spray because Axe came out and was like, "Hey, you want girls to like you? Spray this all over your clothes and chest, and girls will like you." And so, thanks Axe body spray for making middle schools everywhere smell like a can of Axe body spray. So that's really what it comes down to is, either you don't need them or you're an actual net new invention that their customers, can't get any other way. There's one other way that's not mentioned by Matt in this post, and to convince the buyer that they need to bring your product in. And that way is, for lack of a better way to say it, you have a crap load of money. If you're about to spend more on advertising to send customers to their stores than they spend to send customers to their stores, that's compelling. So it's one of those three things. You're already successful. People are going to come there looking for you. You're an actual net new invention, or you got a bunch of money. And I want to tell, so I have there's one more part here where he kind of tells the story of Simple Modern, but I want to pause again and get your thoughts.
I know you started off with the buyers are the gatekeepers,
Yeah.
and the point that you just hit on was very interesting because it's like if your product going into that retailer isn't adding value to that retailer and the buyer is the one making that decision as the gatekeeper, then they don't want you there. And those three things that you talked about help them determine if you're going to add more value to them. It's like when you start the business, you have to add value to the consumer and you have to prove yourself that way. And like you're saying, only the brands that are getting into the retailers, they have to prove themselves that first way at first. They have to prove that they're valuable towards the consumer. And they have to be so valuable, in fact, that they're willing to stand out beyond the other brands that could possibly go into this retailer and provide value that way. And like what you also said that was interesting was you're not just coming to the retailer, not adding you, they're replacing somebody. You have to provide more value than the person that you're replacing. Yeah. And I think it's a very interesting
It's a zero-sum game. Yeah.
It's a zero-sum game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a great statement and something to remember about retail versus direct-to-consumer product sales. Direct-to-consumer, it's not as much of a zero-sum game. Like it is to a degree. People only have so much disposable income, but somebody might be willing to buy. Somebody who buys some other supplement is probably actually more likely to buy your supplement. But in retail, your supplement's not even going to be on the shelf if their supplement is, or theirs isn't going to be on the shelf if yours is. So it is a little bit different game. And this is why I say just because you can be successful in one does not mean you can be successful in another. All right. So last part here, he's kind of tying this all together and just telling us the story of how Simple Modern executed this. So he said, to pull it all together, I will describe how we built our initial pitch for Simple Modern. We started the company by selling on Amazon. Over the first couple of years, we had been able to build the company to around 20 million in annual e-commerce revenue. We built the brand around the value proposition of combining style, premium quality, and affordable prices. Using tools from Amazon and Google, we knew that our core customers were women 25 to 45. Because of the customer overlap, we knew Target would be an ideal partner. We tried cold outreach for several months with no response. We pivoted to pursuing a broker partnership. We crafted our pitch around two dimensions. First, Amazon was gobbling up retail market share. At the time, every retailer was looking to compete more effectively with Amazon, with e-commerce. Our pitch, your customer is already buying Simple Modern, but today they're buying it on Amazon instead of Target. So basically, you scratch our backs, we'll scratch yours. They'll buy it online on Target, and then we get extra sales because they'll buy it in person in your stores. That was me adding something to what he said. Then he said, we also had a system for launching and testing new ideas online so we could bring proven winners. That was the end of what he said. Here's my response here. The concept here is simple, and it's true if you want to sell a product online. It's true if you want to sell something to a buyer at a retail location, and it's just true in life. And the concept is nobody cares about you. They only care about themselves. So how will you get that buyer what they want? So the retail buyer might want status within their company. They might want a promotion. They might want a resume builder so that they can get a better job somewhere else. They might want a yacht. You might have to bribe them and get them a yacht so that they'll bring you product. Like whatever it is they want, that's what you have to focus on. So in this case, he didn't have to bribe anyone. What that buyer wanted was essentially to be a hero within their own company, right? And he showed them a way they could do that. I say the bribe thing, kidding a little bit, but I want to end this by telling a story. So I'm going to start the story by saying I never used this. I never did this, and it doesn't exist anymore. But a few years ago, I worked with a group of people and we had a network of contacts, and I'll just tell you what we could accomplish. We could get anyone's social media accounts banned. Your Facebook or your Instagram account, your personal social media accounts, we could get them banned. Alternatively, we could make anyone an influencer overnight with a large following that was highly engaged and highly relevant to their niche. We had a price sheet. This is not a joke. We just had a price sheet where it was like, hey, you want to get somebody banned that has 200 followers, that's $100. You want to get someone banned that has 20,000 followers, that's $500. If you want to get a A-list celebrity banned, that might be $25,000, right? So we just had a price sheet for it. Like it just was casual. And this wasn't through any kind of awesome marketing we could do. This was simply because we had a network of contacts that knew people who worked at Facebook and Instagram who were willing to take bribes to do this, right? Willing to take bribes to take a brand new Instagram account and make it an influencer overnight and just automatically add followers to it, automatically pump its content. they were also willing to delete accounts. Now, we never pushed it so far. I've never heard of anyone pushing it so far to like try and delete like a major politician or world leader. But, if you wanted to get an A-list celebrity deleted, there was a price. The price for that might be you have to pay them enough to make them independently wealthy so that they can disappear and live the rest of their life on that amount of money. But there's a price. I say all this not to say like I'm sketchy. Again, I never really did that, and what Mike did to get Simple Modern into Target and into Costco was not sketchy, and it wasn't black hat. But I want to restate something he said. He said your customer is already buying Simple Modern. This is what he told the Target buyer. They're already buying Simple Modern. Today, your customer is buying it on Amazon instead of at Target. And then he also said we had a system for launching and testing new ideas, and we could bring them proven winners, right? So that appealed to the buyer, who is an individual human being who wants things that an individual human being wants. He's not a company. He or she is a human being. And those statements represented that human being winning and getting the things that they want. I think if you were to ask Mike, what happened to that original buyer? If Simple Modern has been a win for these retailers, which I believe it has, if you were going to ask Mike what happened to that buyer, I bet he's promoted, or he's retired in a way he wants to be retired, or he's got a better job somewhere else. He has achieved what was represented as a win for him. And at the end of the day, that is all selling is. Whether it's happening on your website, we always remember when it's happening on our website, we know we have to tell the customer what's in it for them. But even if you're selling business to business, even if you're selling a large enterprise, you're trying to get your product into retail, at the end of the day, there is a human. And you need to convince that human that the thing that they want, they can achieve by buying from you. And that's the Johnologue.
That's the Johnologue. That was awesome. And the one point, I love that you brought it back to that quote, because the thing that really stood out to me was at the time that this all happened, Amazon was enemy number one for these retailers.
Yep.
And so he didn't even need to go further on in terms
he gave
of
him the
buy
FOMO by
strategies.
saying your customers are buying somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. And he's like, and I can change that. And that was the leverage that he needed at that time in that situation to please the buyer, to make the good decision, and I mean, it turned out to be a success on both parts several years later down the line.
All right, let's get into our other topics here. We got just a few more.
All right, so
what's up next?
Let's do it. So, free-flowing conversation. I want to kick it off with a question. Do you know where Wendy's headquarters is located?
Wendy's headquarters is located in Greenville, South Carolina.
So close, but so far. It is located in
By so close, do you mean not even close at all?
Not even close at all. I'm being dramatic.
Is it in Arkansas?
It's in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, hey, cool.
So
I mean, I was on it. I was in the Eastern time zone. That's pretty close. I was in the correct time zone. Like
you actually weren't that far.
Good. I'm pretty proud of myself, honestly.
You weren't that far. I just wanted to say that you were. But yeah, so Columbus, Ohio. Just wanted to throw that in there because that's where the part of the Triple Whale team is at. That's where I'm at right now.
Yep.
And it's relevant because they announced last week that they were planning to roll out a new dynamic pricing model similar to the ride-sharing companies as soon as next year.
Yeah.
What they said was that prices would fluctuate based on time, location, and demand. However, this all got taken out of context when the New York Post and some other sources posted that Wendy's was planning an Uber-style surge pricing where burger prices would fluctuate based on demand. Very different language there when they start to put in surge pricing and demand. And from there, the internet went a little crazy about this. What were some of the things that you saw? What were people saying?
There are some when it comes to pricing and marketing, there are some like terms that are just technical terms in the industry that are to like random people, like just, everyday people, that are like trigger words. So surge pricing is one of those terms.
That's a trigger
what they're
word.
doing is surge pricing, but the flip side of surge pricing is during low demand periods, the prices would actually be lower. I think they're just going to test this with the Baconator initially, if I read right. So like, for example, in the middle of the night when they're not busy, the prices might actually be lower. Or if they've got a lot of inventory of burgers, but not very much inventory of chicken. Chicken prices might go up, burger prices might go down. If it's
Mm-hmm.
super hot outside, frosty prices could go up. If it's super cold outside, frosty prices could go down, right? So this is basically if there's an event in town, it just allows them to change their prices based on what's going on in the store. So I think if you explain it like that to someone, they're like, I don't know if I'm bought in, because it sounds like they're just going to charge me more when I actually want to eat there. When I'm
Right.
hungry, that's when they're going to charge me more.
Right.
But the prices are going to go down sometimes. Another one of these, another form of this type of pricing, or a variation of this type of pricing, and another trigger word is price discrimination, where your highest spending customers actually pay you some higher percentage, right? So anytime you take a percentage of something, you are practicing price discrimination. So if you take a commission, that's price discrimination. You're getting more money from the customers who spend more. Sounds bad, isn't actually bad.
Totally. And Wendy's came out and said that when they say dynamic, which was the word they used from the start,
Yeah.
it meant that the pricing model will only result in discounts and value during the slowest times of the day, which makes sense. Like they want to sell more, they want to capitalize on that slower periods. They're not stupid. They're not going to try to price gouge people during the busiest periods.
Yeah.
And then it says leaving other times of the day with standard prices. So it just got taken out of context. But this sparked an idea in my mind
Okay.
for an e-commerce brand. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Hear me out. So the brand is going to be called Surge, and it's going to sell a water bottle. And this water bottle,
Nice.
the product is going to be something bright, flashy, surge, a little bit of electricity. And the whole
a little
concept,
bit of like an unhinged strategy, but in the water bottle game.
exactly,
I like
exactly.
it. I like
and
it.
the whole concept of this brand is that when the brand launches, and there's going to be a lot of hype leading up to launch, the water bottle starts at $1. On the website, you go to the website, and what there's in the website, it's the live price, and then there's like a ticker chart or kind of like a stock trading chart, and based on the demand, the price of the bottle will fluctuate.
Yeah.
And so it'll probably end up hovering around maybe like, let's say $8 to $10 based on demand, but during the lowest periods, as low as $1, people can capitalize on this. And the whole point here is to gamify the shopping experience, add that element of price based on demand, kind of make it fun. But in the end, I think the goal is that the average selling price will still be around the average water bottle, but because it's gamified, it's more fun. It stands out. And and some of the other ideas I had around this was that trading closes at the end of each day, so you can only buy from 9 to 5, unless you're a VIP. Then you can buy whenever you want. And to be a VIP, it's just $100 forever. And I thought through this pricing model, I was like, is it like a subscription? Is it whatever? And I'm like, if somebody buys into a subscription, how long are they going to do it? No. So it's just $100 forever. You can buy the bottle whenever you want. And if you think about it, it's a great deal. You pay $100 over the course of 5 years. You can get 5 to 10 water bottles for $1 each. Like, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah,
so
and I have another wrinkle. Yeah, and then especially if you could do some kind of like limited edition versions where a resale market starts to form around these, that would be cool. Or if you offer the resale market on the store, so it's like people can actually like do this as like an investment or as a day trader, and then also there's exclusivity on the VIP tickets. So like you only
there's
so
only
many
a certain
people.
amount.
Only so many people per day can buy a VIP, like become a VIP. I like this. It's sort of it combines e-commerce and like trading and investing and gambling, So I think which trading and investing is just it's kind of a form of educated gambling, right? So yeah, I mean,
100%.
basically you're just saying all things I like, right? E-commerce, water bottles, gambling, like all those things together gotta be something good. That's 3 good things.
3 good things. And hey,
gonna add up to
speaking
something
of,
great.
you prompted one last idea. Since we're selling water bottles, maybe we have to market it to nurses first. Start the trend.
I mean, I think we got to get the nurses in for sure. Like that's our strategy initially on launch is all the nurse fluencers out there.
Yes.
They're going to be on board with Surge at the launch.
Totally. All right,
They're
John.
going to be the first VIPs. We let them in as free VIPs.
Free VIP, and then we start the demand. Kind of like the Tinder strategy. We'll get them in the door. All the nurses have them.
Yeah.
Go from there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Or the OnlyFans strategy, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it. All
All
right,
right.
John, what do
Next
you
up,
have
going from
next?
Wendy's. Talk about speaking of fast food. I guess we started out talking about fast food. Let's go to more fast food and talk about Burger King. Burger King launched what I would call a semi-controversial ad this week in like the right way. It's like the right kind of controversial. I guess maybe I'll hold my opinions on it. But to describe it for those who are listening on audio, basically it's an ad that says, what is it? What does the copy say? It says like the beauty of no artificial preservatives. And then it's a Whopper with mold all over it. Like, not only is this thing no artificial preservatives, it was left in the friggin' Florida sun for 2 weeks straight. Like, they got it nice and moldy. It is like a little gut wrenching and definitely attention grabbing. And controversial in a sense because I think a lot of people want to hear no artificial preservatives. Everybody wants to eat clean. I think I said something the other week when we were talking about Olipop. I said like, look, if it doesn't have preservatives in it, it probably doesn't taste good. And you're like,
You
no,
did say that.
a lot of people in my generation want to eat healthier and stuff like that, which is exactly what you sounded like when you were saying that. And so I'm on board with Burger King. I'm on Team BK on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, Zach Murray from Foreplay tweeted this out, and I forget what he said at the bottom. It was something like, "This ad almost make me puke, but I love it."
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's so nobody's ever thought of doing this, and what struck me was that I know in the past we've seen things of like the Twinkie or the McDonald's sandwiches on day 35, and they look the same, and
Yeah.
people all talked about that. So I like
People are
this
like,
really hits
"Oh
on
yeah,
that too.
that's how you know it's not good for you." Like,
Right,
you know how
right.
you really know it's not good for you if it's covered in mold. It's definitely not good for you.
On day 35, but on
Yeah.
day 1, it might be better for you. So
Yeah, that's I'm sure that's what the comments are saying is that it's like, well, yeah, well, if you just eat it right away, it's not a problem. Like, okay, but we're running a business here. We have however many locations Burger King has. We have to have some kind of systems and processes by which we can store food. We can meet higher demands on some days, lower demands on other days. What do you want here? Do you want surge? What do you want, people? Do you want surge pricing or do you want food with preservatives in it? I think Americans have shown that we want cheap food with preservatives in it. All right, you know, Americans are happy being fat and filled with preservatives, and
all
Burger
right.
King's just holding up a mirror to society with this ad. So I'm on board with it. I'm on Team BK.
On Team BK. I love it. And I'm curious, I haven't been to Burger King in a while, but after the Whopper thing that we talked about the other week, and now we got this, they're breaking through. They're top of mind, and I might have to get a Whopper soon.
Yeah, not. I mean, honestly, if we're ranking low key, if we're ranking the burgers at fast food restaurants, like just the burgers,
Mm-hmm.
dude, BK,
BK.
it might be the leader. I think.
All
Yeah,
right.
and I'm talking about fast food that's everywhere. Like, there's some regional stuff that whatever,
I
but
know,
like
I know, yeah.
if we're
BK,
talking like the main like
BK,
McDonald's,
Wendy's, McDonald's.
BK,
BK's
Wendy's,
the one.
McDonald's, maybe like Shake Shack, like
Yeah,
I don't know. In and Out, I mean, In and Out might be there in the burger category, but it's not everywhere. So I mean, dude, BK is they make a good burger,
fair enough. You heard it here.
artificial preservatives and all.
Team BK. All right, so Gymshark, to wrap it up, a few days ago, Gymshark published their 2023 financials. And they're a private company, but because they're in the UK and because of their size, they're required to release these financials.
Which
And
is awesome if you're like a business nerd.
exactly. And so that takes us to the next point where Drew Fallon posted this awesome thread on Twitter. I think he published it as a Medium article as well, and I want to dive through a few key parts of it. So first, he talked about how Gymshark posted revenue growth of 15% year over year, which was down from 21% the prior year, but still a solid increase. And that was driven largely by an increase in D2C revenue.
Let,
Guess what
let's
percent?
get
Yes.
let's get an idea of volume here because we increased revenue 15% year over year. If you made $100,000 in revenue last year as a business, 15% increase is not impressive. So what's the order of magnitude of revenue we're talking about?
Around $500 million.
Yeah. So
So raising from
15% equals $150 million, which is an amount of money that you can't really like wrap your head around. $150 million is like buying a small city full of houses.
year over year. It's a lot. And like smaller brands might be like, oh, only 15% growth year over year. Like, but when you get to that, like when you're doing hundreds of million of dollars a year, it's very
15%.
hard to continue that growth while staying profitable. So that
15% is a lot at that time.
15% is a lot at that point. And to dig a little bit deeper into that, non D2C revenue, so retail and other platforms, represents just 3.6% of that total revenue, but it's growing rapidly from that small base. So we'll put a pin in that point.
So basically, like 97% of their revenue is people buying directly on their website.
Correct.
Okay.
And the next thing he kind of dove into was the expenses. And when he started the expense section, he's like, the reason you're in this section is obvious. So I'll just cut to the chase. You want to know all about marketing spend. When you look at a P&L, sometimes it's actually kind of difficult to figure out where the marketing spend is in there. And that was the case here. So he dove in, did the work, did a little bit of reconciliation magic, and he pulled it out. And what he found was that their MER, also known as blended ROAS. So when you look at their total revenue divided by their total marketing spend,
Yeah.
was
Media efficiency, MER is media efficiency ratio, and it is the percentage of your total revenue that you spend on marketing. So if you made $1 million and you spent $100,000 on average on advertising, you spent 10% of your total revenue on advertising. Your MER would be 10%, or your blended ROAS is another way of saying it. But in that form, you're going to say it in a number. It's going to be 10 because it's a 10-to-1 ratio. So go ahead.
correct.
What was
Correct.
their
And so
MER, the
the
MER?
way he put it in his report was 2.32, which is what we call it, triple whale blended ROAS.
Right. So
Then
for
he
every dollar
also
they spent on marketing, they made $2.32 in revenue, $2.32 in revenue.
correct. And then he also, and I did some of the math, we could figure out that means that of the total revenue, 43% of that is being spent on their marketing.
Yeah.
For total marketing. So I pulled some data on the side of triple whale clothing, $100 million plus brands.
Okay.
And I'm
So we're gonna compare them just to other heavy hitters in the clothing category.
correct.
Okay. Let's do it.
So I want you to take an educated guess on what the
Well, over under.
MER and blended ROAS were for the triple whale cohort.
Okay, I'm just gonna say the MER number. So Gymshark's is 43%. They spend 43% of every dollar they make on marketing. I'm gonna say I think that's a little high. I think most clothing brands that are above $100 million spend more like 20 or 25% of every dollar in revenue on marketing. I think that they make more money per dollar of marketing spend, but we're also talking about 100 million. There's a pretty big difference between 500 million and 100 million. 500 million represents a brand that is growing aggressively, which, that's like more, 43% is aggressive growth.
Exactly. So you hit it on the head. The number is 19% for the
I
triple
didn't
whale
I
cohort.
I didn't look before this. That was
He
like,
did not look. I did
yeah.
not show him these numbers. And I mean, you were a little bit high, but very, very close to 19%. And that is, it's not, the average there isn't like 500 million, but it is a little bit above 100 million. So
Yeah.
19, which then equates to around a 5.2% blended ROAS, if that's how you look at the
Yep.
metric, just so you can.
5.2 blended ROAS. Yeah. So typically brands that are that big have a little bit higher blended ROAS, especially in clothing, because clothing has a lot of rebuys. So it has a lot of people that you don't have
Mhm.
to spend marketing dollars on to get them to purchase again when you're that
Correct.
big. You don't get that big without having people coming back and buying from you often in clothing. So that's why I kind of knew that. But I'm actually kind of impressed with Gymshark that they're growing that aggressively still at 500 million.
So that's the next point I want to point out, is that they saw that 15% growth year over year. But when we look at our cohort of customers, that growth is much closer to, it's basically flat year
Yep.
over year. And when we look at that comparison with growth, but marketing efficiency, it shows that triple whale brands might not be scaling as aggressively, but they're definitely prioritizing the overall efficiency
Profit
a lot more than
than Gymshark. Yeah.
Gymshark is.
But yeah, no. So that's interesting that it's flat because I'm sure they would like to grow. But yeah, look, what's the takeaway here? If you're a clothing brand and you're getting that big and you want this nice juicy profit, you want to spend only $1 on advertising for every $5 in revenue you make. That's great, but get ready for flat growth. Uh,
Right.
if you actually want to grow, then Gymshark's laying out the model. Like you're going to have to be aggressive. You're going to have to spend and acquire more customers very aggressively. And I'm going to make another sort of educated guess here, and I'm going to guess that Gymshark might be acquiring customers at a loss or maybe at break even. Whereas I think a lot of clothing brands are not willing to do that. They want to acquire profitably. And that's not, I think for most smaller brands, that's a good idea. But once you get up into that 100 million zone and people are coming back and buying from you and you know what your average customer value is over 60 days and 90 days, if you want to keep growing, you're going to have to, pay up.
Exactly. So that tees up the last point I want to make nicely is that Gymshark's net profit was their profitability was 1.8% this past year, which has dropped in the last 3 years from 9.1 to 4.7 to 1.8. Yep. Which a lot of people pointed out and they were like, what the heck? 1.8? Like, that's horrible. It's going on?
It's basically nothing. They're not really they're just on the other side of profitable, basically.
Right, exactly. But Drew's analysis of this at the end, I want to quote a few things he said. So it's clear that when he looks in the whole P&L and the whole report, that Gymshark had a belt tightening year in 2023, but he's bullish on the setup for the company into a recovering market. The most recent valuation will certainly be a hurdle. So the recent valuation was around 1.4 billion. But right now, like given the entire e-commerce space and apparel, like he thinks the valuation is a little bit lower than that. So that's why he thinks that right now they had a belt tightening year. They're kind of tightening everything down. And he said he believes that this will likely be the last report we see before significant cash flow generation from the business, as well as overall growth driven by the omni-channel strategy. So that ties back into the retail is only around 3% of total revenue right now, but he does expect that to scale aggressively throughout these next few years. And then he concludes by estimating or predicting approximately 2 years before they plan to be IPO ready.
Yeah, let's go back to what I said. What's in it for Target if you want to get into Target? Well, if you plan to spend more on advertising than they spend on advertising in their geos, like in where they have stores, that's compelling, right? If people know that they can come get it at Target. Gymshark is basically ponied up and spent a bunch on advertising in 2023 to establish that like people want, like we're everywhere. We're effing everywhere, right? So if we're not in your stores, people are going to buy it somewhere else. So no, I respect it. And at the end of the day, why do you need more than 1%, 1.8% profit if you're that large? Now, if you're a smaller brand, don't take that a page out of that playback. But like for real, why do you need more than 1.8% profit? If you're a CEO, if you're a founder, if you're an owner, whatever, you're getting paid a salary, right? And you're getting paid some bonus structure. At that size, you're not taking a draw on the profit. If you're an investor, you're an angel because you're not, so if you're an investor, you're really there for the exit. You're not there for like profit draws. So as long as it can be profitable, and that's what they're doing. 1.8% represents perfect control over whether we were profitable or not. Right. Which is way more discipline than most tech companies have in Gymshark's phase. So I think hats off to them. I think 1.8% represents pretty perfect control of like, oh yeah, we want to just basically barely be profitable because we don't want to be unprofitable, but we want to grow as much as possible.
Exactly. They're playing a different game out here. Yeah. And I think it'll be interesting to see how this continues to evolve the next few years as they get closer to IPO ready. I'm sure then they will want to rescale up those profits, but they have to prepare for that, build a healthy model, build something that's ready to scale beyond 500 million, which alone is a massive milestone. And then we'll see what happens after that.
For e-commerce, for sure.
Yep.
I think that's it. Now everybody is You know, they started out as little baby whales. What are baby whales called? Started out as little
Uh,
baby whales.
I
Now they're
don't know what a
full-grown
baby is
killer
called.
whale orcas. Just, with all the knowledge we've dropped in this episode of Well Informed.